Since when does a black woman get to carry military travel orders? Official orders signed by the United States Army Command.
He looked her dead in the eyes and ripped them in half.
You just destroyed a federal document, Deputy.
The U.S. military doesn't hand orders to people with dirty blood. Who'd let an illegal black immigrant defend this country?
Her mother was crying in the passenger seat. A truck slowed down, looked, and kept driving. He reached for his handcuffs. A black woman in a rental car on a back road in Georgia. Who was going to stop him? But what he didn't know was that everything he'd just done had set the beginning of his own downfall. Let me take you back to earlier that morning. About 3 hours before those blue lights ever appeared in the rearview mirror, Colton County, Georgia, a small town where everybody knows everybody, and everybody minds everybody else's business. The kind of place where the gas station doubles as the gossip hub, where Confederate flags still hang from a few porches like nobody ever told them the war ended. Where a black face in an unfamiliar car gets noticed before it even passes the first stop sign. That's where Denise Powell lived. A small house on a quiet street. White paint peeling off the porch rails. A rocking chair by the front door that creaked every time the wind blew. Flower beds along the walkway. Marigolds and petunias. Neat, bright, cared for. That's who Denise was. 71 years old. Retired schoolteacher. The kind of woman who ironed her church clothes on Saturday night and had Sunday breakfast ready by 6. Her daughter pulled into the driveway just after sunset the night before. Brianna Powell. Early 40s, tall, lean. The kind of posture that doesn't come from yoga. It comes from 20 years in the United States Army. She stepped out of a rented black Chevy Tahoe, kissed her mother on the forehead, and carried her bag inside without a word about where she'd been or where she was going. Because she couldn't. Brianna was a lieutenant colonel, one of the highest-ranking black women in her division. And right now, she was on an official, classified mission. Orders had come down from Army Command 48 hours earlier. She was to travel from Fort Moore, Georgia, to another military installation for a high-level security briefing. The kind of briefing where your name gets checked 3 times before you enter the room. The nature of the mission required her to travel in civilian clothes. No uniform, no military vehicle. No indication whatsoever that the woman driving that rented Tahoe held a rank most people will never reach. She'd stopped at her mother's house because it was on the route. The plan was simple. Spend the night, wake up early, drop Denise at her sister's house in the next town, then continue to the base. A 2-hour detour at most. Nothing complicated. That morning, the house smelled like coffee and bacon grease. Denise was already up, moving slow through the kitchen in her house slippers, pulling plates from the cabinet. "You don't eat enough," she said, without turning around. "Sit down." Brianna smiled. She was a woman who commanded hundreds of soldiers, but in this kitchen, her mother still gave the orders. She sat. She ate. She washed the dishes after. While Denise got dressed, Brianna went to the living room. On the mantel, a framed photograph. Her in full dress uniform. Medals across the chest. American flag behind her. The photo had been there for years. Denise dusted it every week. Brianna's phone buzzed. She picked up. Her voice shifted, clipped, precise. No warmth. "Confirmed. I'll be at the installation by 1400 hours. Yes, sir. Understood." She hung up, walked back to the kitchen, poured her mother another cup of coffee, and asked if she needed help with her shoes. 2 different women. Same person. Before leaving, Brianna sat at the kitchen table and opened her briefcase. Inside, everything that mattered. Her official military travel orders. A typed document on Army letterhead bearing the official seal. It listed her full name, her rank, lieutenant colonel, her unit, her point of origin, her destination, and the authorizing commander's signature. This document was her passage. It meant she was operating under the direct authority of the United States Army, and any civilian agency, including local law enforcement, was expected to extend cooperation. Her Common Access Card, the CAC. Military ID, photo, name, rank, branch. The card that opened every door on every base in the country. A sealed folder marked Confidential. The mission briefing. She hadn't opened it yet. That was for the installation. She closed the briefcase, clicked the latches shut, placed it on the back seat of the Tahoe, hung her dress uniform, pressed, pristine, lieutenant colonel insignia on the shoulders, in a garment bag behind the driver's seat. Then she helped her mother into the passenger side, buckled her seatbelt, and pulled out of the driveway. 20 minutes into the drive, Denise looked out the window and said quietly, "I don't like this road, baby. The police out here, they're not like your people. They see a black face in a strange car, and they get ideas." Brianna reached over and squeezed her mother's hand. "We'll be fine, Mama. It's just a short drive." They wouldn't be fine. The Tahoe was doing 53 in a 55 zone. Brianna drove the way she did everything. Controlled, precise, by the book. Both hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. Not a single reason for anyone to look twice. But someone did. A Colton County Sheriff's cruiser sat parked behind a cluster of pine trees just past mile marker 12. Engine running. Radar gun resting on the dashboard, unused. The deputy inside wasn't watching for speeders. He was watching for something else. The black Tahoe with out-of-county plates caught his eye the moment it crested the hill. Deputy Derek Swanson, late 30s, broad shoulders, buzz cut, Oakley sunglasses pushed up on his forehead. 14 years on the Colton County force, and not a single day spent questioning whether he belonged there. He was the kind of cop who called himself old school, and meant it as a compliment. The kind who saw a black driver in an unfamiliar car and felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear. Something worse. Certainty. Certainty that whoever was behind that wheel didn't belong on his road. He pulled out behind the Tahoe. No lights yet, just following. Close enough for Brianna to notice. She checked her mirror, stayed calm, kept her speed steady. He followed for a full mile. Then the lights came on, blue and red, spinning hard against the morning sky. Brianna signaled, pulled onto the gravel shoulder, cut the engine, placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Visible, still, deliberate. She'd been trained for this. Not by the army. By her mother. By every black mother who ever sat her child down and said, "If you get pulled over, don't move. Don't argue. Don't give them a reason." Denise stiffened in the passenger seat. Her fingers gripped the door handle. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The look on her face said everything. She'd been here before. Maybe not on this road, but somewhere like it. Every black woman her age had. Swanson took his time getting out of the cruiser, adjusted his belt, touched his holster. Not a draw, just a reminder. A habit. He walked toward the Tahoe with the kind of slow, heavy stride that said, "I'm in no rush, because out here, I own your time." He reached the driver's window, didn't lean down, didn't make eye contact right away. He tapped the window frame with his flashlight. 2 hard knocks, like he was banging on a door he had every right to kick open. "License and registration. Where are you headed?" No good morning. No sir, ma'am. No introduction. Just a command. Brianna kept her voice level. "Good morning, Deputy. I'm heading to drop my mother off at her sister's house in Dalton. My license is in my wallet in the center console. I'm going to reach for it now." She moved slowly, pulled out her driver's license, handed it through the window. Then she opened the glove box and retrieved the rental car agreement, a standard document from a national chain, printed and signed, clean and legitimate. Swanson took both. He looked at the license, looked at her face, looked at the license again. Then he studied the rental agreement like it was written in a language he didn't trust. "This vehicle isn't registered to you." "It's a rental, Deputy. That's the agreement right there. Everything should be in order." He didn't respond. He flipped the rental agreement over, turned it sideways, held it up to the light like he was checking for a watermark that didn't exist. "This doesn't look right," he said. "It's a standard rental agreement from—" "I said it doesn't look right." His voice dropped. Not louder, lower. The kind of low that dares you to keep talking. Brianna went quiet. She knew this game. Every black person who's ever been pulled over knows this game. The document is fine. They know it's fine. But saying it's not right gives them a reason to keep you there, to keep digging, to keep fishing for something that isn't there. From the passenger seat, Denise spoke up, soft, careful. The voice of a woman who'd spent her whole life choosing her words around men with badges. "Officer, we're just on our way to my sister's house. We haven't done anything wrong. We'll be out of your way in no time." Swanson's head snapped toward her. His eyes narrowed. "I didn't ask you, ma'am. Stay in the vehicle and keep quiet." Denise flinched like she'd been slapped. Her mouth closed, her hands folded in her lap. She looked down. Brianna felt the heat rise in her chest, but she held it. Years of military discipline locked it in place. She breathed. She waited. This was the moment, the one she'd prepared for. Not with guns or rank or authority, with the truth. "Deputy," she said, steady and clear. "I'm currently traveling under official orders from the United States Army. I have my military travel orders in my briefcase on the back seat. They confirm my identity, my rank, and my authorized travel route. Would you like to see them?" Swanson paused. Something flickered across his face. Not concern, not respect. Curiosity. The kind a cat shows before it bats something off a table. "Go ahead," he said. Slow. Brianna reached back. Slowly, every movement announced, and unlatched the briefcase. She pulled out the official military travel orders. Crisp paper, Army letterhead. The official seal of the United States Army at the top. Her name, Lieutenant Colonel Brianna Powell. Her unit. Her origin point, Fort Moore, Georgia. Her destination, classified. The signature of her authorizing commander at the bottom. She handed it through the window. Swanson took it. He read it. She watched his eyes move across the lines. He saw her name. He saw her rank. He saw the seal. He saw everything he needed to see. Then he looked at her, and the corner of his mouth lifted, just barely. A smirk. Small. Cruel. "What is this supposed to be?" "Those are my official military travel orders, Deputy, issued by Army Command." He held the document up between two fingers, like it was dirty, like it was a napkin someone had left on his counter. "You really expect me to believe the United States Army gave travel orders to you?" The word "you" hit different. It wasn't a question about paperwork. It was a question about her skin, about what he believed someone who looked like her could or couldn't be. Brianna's voice didn't waver. "That document is genuine, Deputy, and it's federal property. I'd ask that you handle it carefully." Swanson held her gaze. 3 seconds. 5. The kind of silence that vibrates. Then he gripped the travel orders with both hands and tore them in half. Clean down the middle. The sound of the paper ripping cut through the morning air like a slap. The two halves fluttered to the gravel. Denise gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Brianna stared at the torn paper on the ground. Her jaw locked. Her fingers curled against her thighs. But she didn't move. She didn't shout. She said quietly, You just destroyed an official federal military document. Swanson leaned in close. So close she could smell the coffee on his breath. And he said the words that would play on every news station in the country within a week. The U.S. military doesn't hand orders to people with dirty blood. Who'd let an illegal black immigrant defend this country? He straightened up, tossed her license onto the dashboard through the window, called into his radio for backup. A second cruiser arrived within 4 minutes. Deputy Travis Holt, early 30s, white, thinner than Swanson, quieter. He parked behind Swanson's cruiser and walked up with his hands on his belt, not aggressive, but not helpful either. He looked at Brianna standing by the car. He looked at the torn paper on the ground. He looked at Swanson. He didn't say a word. Swanson handed Holt the rental agreement and the license. "Run these. I'm going to have a closer look at this vehicle." He turned back to Brianna. "Step away from the car. Stand over there by my cruiser. Hands where I can see them." Brianna complied. She walked to the cruiser, stood still, hands at her sides, palms out. Inside the Tahoe, Denise was shaking, not crying yet. That would come later. Right now she was frozen, the kind of still that comes from a lifetime of knowing what can happen on roads like this, to women like them, when men like Swanson decide they have something to prove. Swanson walked back to the Tahoe like he owned it. He opened the rear door without asking, without a warrant, without consent, without probable cause. "I smell something in this vehicle," he said over his shoulder. The oldest trick in the book. The magic words that every dirty cop knows turn an illegal search into a justified one. There was nothing to smell. The car was a rental. It smelled like air freshener and carpet cleaner. But that didn't matter. The words had been said. And out here, his words were the only ones that counted. He started with the back seat, unzipped Brianna's travel bag, pulled out folded clothes, a blouse, jeans, underwear. He held up a bra between 2 fingers, glanced at Holt, and smirked. Then he tossed everything onto the seat like he was emptying a trash bag. Denise turned her head away. She couldn't watch. He opened the glove compartment, pulled out the rental paperwork he'd already seen, tossed it on the floor. Found a pack of tissues, a phone charger, a bottle of hand sanitizer, threw them all onto the passenger seat next to Denise. She pressed herself against the door to get away from him. Then he found the garment bag. It hung behind the driver's seat. Long, black, zipped tight. He grabbed it by the hanger and yanked it out of the car. The metal hanger scraped against the roof lining. He held it up, unzipped it slowly, and looked inside. A United States Army dress uniform, pressed to perfection. Lieutenant Colonel insignia on both shoulders, a silver oak leaf that represented 20 years of service, 3 combat deployments, and a security clearance most civilians will never know exists. Campaign ribbons lined the chest, each one a story. Each one earned in places most people can't find on a map. Swanson stared at it. For a moment, just a moment, something crossed his face. Recognition, maybe. Or doubt. But it disappeared fast. He laughed. "What is this? A costume? You playing soldier?" He pulled the uniform out of the garment bag, held it at arm's length like it was a Halloween outfit from a discount store. Then he tossed it. The uniform hit the gravel, medals down, ribbons in the dirt. The insignia that marked 20 years of sacrifice pressed into Georgia red clay. Brianna watched from the cruiser. Her face didn't move, but her eyes changed. Something behind them went cold. Not broken, not defeated. Cold. The kind of cold that comes right before a storm. She said, in a voice sharp enough to cut bone, "That is a United States Army uniform, Deputy. You are now in possession of destroyed military travel orders, and you've just thrown an officer's uniform on the ground. I am asking you one final time. badge number, and supervising officer. Swanson turned, walked toward her. Slow. Stopped close. Too close. She could feel his breath on her forehead. "You're not in charge out here. I am. And that little costume? It doesn't mean a damn thing on my road." He went back to the Tahoe, reached across the back seat, and grabbed the briefcase. Brianna's briefcase. The one she'd packed that morning at her mother's kitchen table. He popped it open on the hood of his cruiser and dumped the contents. Her wallet slapped onto the metal. Her phone skidded across the surface. Keys, lip balm, a pen, all scattered like junk from a drawer. And then, the two items that mattered most. Her common access card, the military's CAC, her photo, her name, her rank, lieutenant colonel, her branch, all printed in plain text. It landed face up on the hood. Swanson picked it up, looked at it for maybe 2 seconds, then flicked it aside with his index finger like he was brushing off a crumb. And the sealed folder. Tan cover, red stripe across the top. One word stamped in black ink. Confidential. He reached for it. Brianna's voice cut through the air. "Do not open that folder. It contains classified military material. Opening it without authorization is a federal offense." Swanson stopped. His fingers hovered over the folder. For the first time all morning, something in his body language hesitated. Not guilt, not fear. Instinct. Even a man like Swanson knew there were lines. He didn't open it, but he left it there, sitting on the hood of his cruiser, unsealed, unsecured, visible to anyone who walked past. That alone was a security violation, and he didn't care. Denise broke. She'd been holding it together, barely, since the moment those blue lights appeared. But watching her daughter's belongings dumped on a car hood, watching her uniform thrown in the dirt, watching a man treat the woman she raised like a criminal for no reason at all, it cracked something inside her. She called out through the open window, voice trembling. "Please, please just let us go. My daughter hasn't done anything. We're just trying to get to my sister's house. Please." Swanson didn't even look at her. He shouted at Holt. "I told you to keep that woman quiet." Holt walked to the passenger window. He leaned down. His voice was low, almost gentle, but the words weren't comfort. They were compliance. "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm and remain in the vehicle." He didn't say, "It's going to be okay." He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't say anything that would put him between Swanson and this woman. He just did what he'd always done, stood to the side and let it happen. A pickup truck slowed as it passed. White driver, ball cap. He looked out the window, saw a black woman standing by a cruiser, an elderly black woman crying in a car, clothes thrown around, a uniform on the ground. He stared for 3 full seconds. Then he drove away. Nobody was coming. Swanson turned back to Brianna. His voice was almost casual now, like he was bored with her, like this was the end. "All right, I'm placing you under arrest, obstruction of justice and operating a suspicious vehicle. Both charges invented, both of them meaningless, and both of them enough to put a black woman in the back of a cruiser in rural Georgia on a Tuesday morning while her mother watched." He reached for his handcuffs. Brianna spoke. Calm. Final. "Before you do that, I'm going to make a phone call. That is my right." She picked her phone up from the hood where it had been dumped. Swanson told her to put it down. She didn't. She dialed. The call connected in 2 rings. Colonel Nathan Graves, direct line. He picked up the way military men pick up phones. Fast, sharp, ready. Brianna's voice shifted. No longer the daughter. No longer the civilian. She was a soldier now. Every word was a field report. Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Powell. I'm on Route 9, approximately 4 miles south of Colton Junction, Georgia. I've been stopped by 2 Colton County Sheriff's deputies, cruiser number 41. I've been detained without cause. My military travel orders have been destroyed. My uniform has been removed from my vehicle and discarded. My CAC was dismissed. Classified briefing materials are currently unsecured on the hood of a deputy's cruiser. I'm about to be placed in handcuffs. Silence on the line. 2 seconds. 3. Graves asked one question. Are you physically safe at this moment, Colonel? For the moment, sir. Do not resist. Do not escalate. I am 20 minutes from your location. I'm bringing military police. The line went dead. Swanson had been watching, arms crossed. The smirk was back. Who'd you call? Your boyfriend? Maybe he can come down here and explain how rental cars work. Holt didn't laugh. He stared at the ground. Swanson stepped forward, grabbed Brianna's wrist, spun her around, slapped the handcuffs on. Left wrist, then right. The metal clicked shut. Cold. Tight. She didn't resist. She stood by the cruiser, wrists locked behind her back, chin up, eyes forward. The posture of a soldier, even now, especially now. Her mother had gone silent. That was worse than the crying. The silence of a woman who had stopped believing anyone was coming. The torn travel orders blew across the gravel in the breeze. The uniform lay in the dirt. The classified folder sat on the hood, baking in the Georgia sun. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. Swanson leaned against his cruiser, checking his phone. Holt stood by the Tahoe, arms folded, staring at nothing. And Brianna waited. Still. Silent. Hands locked behind her back, watching the road. She knew what was coming. They didn't. The sound came first, a low rumble from the south end of the road. Then a second engine behind it. Heavy. Official. The kind of sound that makes people on a back road look up. Brianna heard it before anyone else. Her chin lifted half an inch. Her breathing slowed. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Swanson noticed the vehicles a few seconds later. He pushed off the cruiser and squinted down the road. 2 cars approaching. Not civilian. The first, an olive-drab military staff car with official plates. The second, a military police vehicle. White. Bold letters on the side. U.S. Army MP. They pulled up behind the deputies' cruisers. Engines cut. Doors opened. Colonel Nathan Graves stepped out of the first vehicle. Full dress uniform. Silver eagles on both shoulders. The insignia of a full colonel in the United States Army. Campaign ribbons stacked across his chest. Boots polished to a mirror shine. His posture was the kind that straightened every spine within 50 feet. Behind him, a military police sergeant exited the second vehicle. Armed. Sidearm on the hip. Face like concrete. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The air on that gravel shoulder changed. Swanson felt it. Holt felt it. Even Denise, still sitting frozen in the Tahoe, lifted her head. Graves didn't rush. He walked forward with the deliberate pace of a man who had commanded soldiers in 3 theaters of war. His eyes swept the scene, every detail registering like a photograph. Brianna, handcuffed, standing at attention by the cruiser, not because anyone told her to, but because her body defaulted to discipline even in this moment. The dress uniform, crumpled on the gravel, medals pressed into the dirt, ribbons that represented 2 decades of service lying in Georgia red clay. The torn travel orders, 2 halves, one on the ground near the Tahoe, the other on the hood of Swanson's cruiser, pinned under a wallet. The classified folder, sitting in plain view on the hood, unsecured, exposed. A federal security violation in broad daylight. Denise. Small. Still. Tears dried on her cheeks. Hands folded in her lap like a woman in church praying for something she wasn't sure God would send. Graves stopped in front of Brianna. He looked at her wrists, red where the metal had pressed in. He looked at her face. She met his eyes and gave a single, slight nod. Soldier to commander. I'm here. I held the line. He turned to Swanson. The deputy had straightened up. The smirk was gone. His arms hung at his sides. He wasn't intimidated, not yet, but he was alert. The way a dog gets alert when a bigger dog walks into the yard. Graves spoke. His voice was level, measured, each word placed like a round in a chamber. Deputy, my name is Colonel Nathan Graves, United States Army. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I strongly advise you to answer carefully. He walked to the gravel and bent down, picked up one half of the torn travel orders, held it up so Swanson could see the Army seal, the signature, the rank. Did you tear this document? Swanson shifted his weight. She was being uncooperative, and I had reason to believe yes or no, Deputy. Silence. A bird called somewhere in the pines. The cruiser radio crackled. Yes, but this is an official military travel order issued by the United States Army Command, signed by an authorizing commander, stamped with a federal seal. It is a federal document, and you destroyed it. Graves set the torn half on the hood, picked up the CAC card, Brianna's military ID, held it 6 inches from Swanson's face. Did you see this card? I glanced at it, but Then you saw her name, her rank, her branch of service. He turned the card so the sun caught the photo. Brianna's face. The words beneath it, Lieutenant Colonel Brianna Powell, U.S. Army. This is Lieutenant Colonel Brianna Powell. She holds a security clearance that I am not authorized to discuss in your presence. She has completed 3 combat deployments in service to this country. She was traveling under official military orders, orders that you tore apart with your bare hands. Graves pointed at the uniform on the ground. His voice dropped, not softer, heavier. And that uniform you threw in the dirt? She earned every single ribbon on it, in places you will never go, doing things you will never be asked to do. He stepped forward, close enough that Swanson had to tilt his chin up to meet his eyes. She outranks you. She outranks your partner. She outranks your sheriff. And she has done more for this country in one deployment than you have done in your entire career. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Holt took a half step back. His face was gray. Swanson's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Take those handcuffs off her. Now. Swanson's hands were shaking. He fumbled with the key ring on his belt, dropped the keys once, picked them up, unlocked the left cuff, then the right. The metal fell away. Brianna brought her wrists forward. Red marks circled both. She rubbed them once, then stopped. She wouldn't give Swanson the satisfaction of seeing her tend to what he'd done. Graves walked to the gravel, bent down, picked up the dress uniform with both hands. He brushed the dirt off, slowly, carefully, fold by fold, metal by metal. He straightened the collar, aligned the insignia. Then he placed it in Brianna's hands. She took it, held it against her chest, and for the first time all morning, her eyes glistened. Graves turned to the dash cam mounted on Swanson's cruiser. The small red light blinked steadily. Recording. That camera has been running this entire time, correct? Swanson said nothing. Graves looked at Holt. Deputy, I am advising you, personally and professionally, to ensure that footage is preserved in full. Every second. Because what I just witnessed will be reviewed by the FBI, the Army Inspector General, and the Department of Justice. If a single frame is missing, you will answer for it. Holt nodded. Fast. His hands were trembling. Brianna walked to the Tahoe, opened the passenger door, took her mother's hand. It's over, Mama. We're going home. Denise looked up at her daughter, then past her, at Graves, standing tall in the morning light, at the MP with his hand resting near his sidearm, at Swanson, standing small and pale beside his own cruiser, like a man watching his life drain out through a hole he'd punched in the bottom. Denise nodded, but her hands were still shaking. Some things end, but they don't stop hurting. Graves didn't wait. He pulled out his phone right there on the gravel shoulder and called the Colton County Sheriff's Department. Not the front desk, not dispatch. He demanded Sheriff Ronald Calder directly. This is Colonel Nathan Graves, United States Army. I need your sheriff on this line in the next 60 seconds. This is not a request. It took 45. Calder's voice came through. Cautious, political, the voice of a man already calculating damage. Graves didn't let him finish his greeting. Sheriff, one of your deputies conducted an unlawful traffic stop on a senior United States Army officer this morning. During the stop, he destroyed her official military travel orders, a federal document issued by Army Command. He conducted an illegal search of her vehicle without warrant or consent. He removed her dress uniform and threw it on the ground. He exposed classified military materials in an unsecured public setting. He verbally abused her with racial slurs, and he handcuffed her, a lieutenant colonel on active orders, while her 71-year-old mother sat in the passenger seat begging him to stop. Silence on the line. I expect you at this location within 30 minutes. I will be filing formal complaints through military channels, and I am referring this matter to the FBI's Civil Rights Division and the Army Inspector General. The destruction of military travel orders alone makes this a federal matter. The exposure of classified materials makes it a national security matter. I suggest you start treating it as one. He hung up. Sheriff Ronald Calder arrived in 22 minutes, red-faced, sweating through his uniform shirt. He stepped out of his SUV and took in the scene. The torn papers, the dirt-stained uniform draped over Brianna's arm, the classified folder still sitting on the hood of his deputy's cruiser. His eyes moved to Graves, then to the MP standing 3 feet behind him, then to the dash cam with its blinking red light. He knew. Before a single word was spoken, he knew this was already beyond his control. He walked to Brianna first, extended his hand, put on the voice, the one every politician practices in the mirror. Ma'am, I want to sincerely apologize on behalf of the Colton County Sheriff's Department. I'm sure this was a misunderstanding that... Brianna didn't take his hand. She looked him dead in the face. There was no misunderstanding, Sheriff. I identified myself. I presented official military travel orders signed by a United States Army commanding officer. Your deputy read my name, my rank, and the federal seal on that document, and tore it apart in my face. He called me dirty blood. He threw my uniform in the dirt. He left classified material sitting on the hood of his cruiser in 90-degree heat for anyone to see. He put me in handcuffs while my 71-year-old mother sat 10 feet away, crying, begging him to stop. She paused. Let the silence do the work. That is not a misunderstanding, Sheriff. That is a series of deliberate choices made by a man who believed he would never face consequences. The question now is whether you prove him right. Calder had no answer. His hand dropped to his side. Swanson tried. He stepped forward, jaw tight, eyes darting between Calder and Graves. Sheriff, I followed standard protocol. The vehicle had out-of-county plates. The paperwork looked suspicious. I had every reason to... Derek. Calder's voice was flat. Dead. Stop talking. Right now. He turned to Holt. Where's the dashcam footage? Still recording, sir. Don't touch it. Don't copy it. Don't delete a single frame. That footage is now federal evidence. Am I clear? Holt nodded. Calder turned back to Swanson. Badge. Weapon. Now. Swanson blinked. Sheriff, Now, Derek. The badge came off first. Swanson unclipped it from his chest and held it out. His fingers were trembling. Then the sidearm, unholstered, cleared, laid across Calder's open palm. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately. Go home. Don't talk to the press. Don't talk to anyone. You'll hear from my office. Swanson walked to his cruiser. He didn't look at Brianna. He didn't look at Graves. He opened the door, sat down, and drove away in silence. But the dashcam on his cruiser had already captured the one thing that mattered: the look on his face. Fear. Real fear. The kind that comes when a man suddenly realizes the ground he's been standing on was never as solid as he thought. Holt was reassigned to desk duty, effective immediately, pending full investigation. Brianna collected her belongings from the hood of the cruiser: her wallet, her keys, her CAC card, the classified folder. She checked the seal, still intact. She placed everything back in the briefcase and clicked it shut. She helped her mother out of the Tahoe, walked her around to the passenger side, and buckled her seatbelt. Denise hadn't spoken since Graves arrived, not one word. They pulled back onto the road. The pine trees slid past. The cruisers shrank in the rearview mirror. 5 minutes of silence. Then Denise said, quietly, almost to herself, I told you about that road, baby. Brianna didn't answer. She reached across the console and took her mother's hand, held it tight. Her jaw was clenched, her eyes were wet, but the tears didn't fall. Not yet. Not on this road. Not where anyone could see. Some victories don't feel like victories. They feel like proof that the fight was necessary in the first place. The first domino fell within 24 hours. Colonel Graves filed his formal report through U.S. Army channels before the sun set that same day. It landed on the desk of the Army Inspector General the next morning. By noon, the FBI's Civil Rights Division had been notified. By the end of the week, a federal investigation was officially open. The Colton County Sheriff's Department received a subpoena for the dashcam footage from Swanson's cruiser. They stalled. Calder's office claimed the footage needed to be reviewed internally before release. Standard bureaucratic delay, the kind that makes evidence disappear in small towns where the sheriff and the judge play golf on Sundays. It didn't work this time. A federal judge issued a preservation order within 72 hours. The language was blunt. Any tampering, deletion, or alteration of the footage would result in immediate obstruction charges for every person in the chain of custody. Calder's hands were tied. The footage was surrendered. That's when Angela Whitmore got involved. Whitmore was a reporter at the local ABC affiliate, mid-30s, sharp, relentless. The kind of journalist who didn't wait for press releases. She went looking for stories that people in power didn't want told. She received a tip from someone inside the sheriff's department, she never revealed who, and filed a Freedom of Information request for the dashcam recording. She got it. What she aired was a 6-minute segment, unedited, with full audio. And it destroyed everything Derek Swanson ever thought he could hide behind. The footage showed it all. Every second. Swanson's tone from the moment he approached the window, cold, hostile, already decided. Brianna's calm voice presenting her military travel orders. Swanson reading the document, her name, her rank, the Army seal, then tearing it in half without hesitation. The uniform pulled from the garment bag and thrown onto the gravel. The briefcase dumped on the hood. The CAC card flicked aside like a piece of trash. The classified folder left sitting in the open sun. Denise crying, begging, and Brianna, standing in handcuffs, chin up, silent, while the man who put her there leaned against his cruiser and checked his phone. Then the arrival. Graves stepping out in full uniform. The confrontation. The 5 words that cracked the whole thing open. She outranks you all. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. By Saturday morning, it had 14 million views. By Monday, every major network in the country had picked it up. The image that stuck, the one that became the symbol, was a single frame from the footage. The torn travel orders on the gravel. 2 halves of a federal document ripped apart by a man who didn't believe the woman who carried them deserved to. People shared it, printed it, turned it into protest signs. It showed up on T-shirts, on murals, on the screens of Times Square during a veterans' rights rally. It became the image of something much bigger than one traffic stop on a Georgia back road. Veterans organizations moved first. The veterans of foreign wars issued a public statement calling the incident a disgrace to every man and woman who has worn the uniform. 3 retired generals appeared on national television to condemn Swanson by name. Active duty soldiers posted their own travel orders on social media, a silent, powerful act of solidarity with Breonna Powell. Social media erupted. Hashtags trended for days. Colton County, a place most Americans had never heard of, became the center of a national conversation about race, power, and who gets to be seen as a patriot. Then the digging started, and what came out was worse than anyone expected. Investigative reporters and FBI agents uncovered Swanson's history. Not just one incident, but a pattern. 14 formal complaints filed against him over 5 years. 12 from black motorists, 2 from Latino drivers. Every single one dismissed, buried, or conveniently lost somewhere in the department's filing system. 2 prior stops matched the Breonna Powell incident almost exactly. Black drivers in rental cars with out-of-county plates. Fabricated charges, illegal searches. No dashcam footage available for either. The complaints had been signed off by the same supervisor each time, Sheriff Ronald Calder. Internal records showed Calder was aware of at least 8 of the 14 complaints. He'd reviewed them personally. He'd signed the dismissals himself. Not a single one resulted in discipline, not a written warning, not a suspension, not even a conversation. This wasn't one bad deputy. This was a system designed to protect him. The FBI formally charged Derek Swanson with 3 federal counts. Count 1. Deprivation of rights under color of law. 18 U.S.C. Section 242. The unlawful stop, search, detention, and arrest of Lieutenant Colonel Breonna Powell, motivated by racial bias, conducted under the authority of his badge. Count 2. Destruction of an official federal military document. The travel orders, signed, sealed, stamped by Army Command, torn apart deliberately and with full knowledge of what they were. Count 3. Unauthorized exposure of classified material. The sealed briefing folder left unsecured on the hood of a police cruiser in a public setting for over 30 minutes. Combined, the charges carried a maximum of 10 years in federal prison. The trial was held in federal court. National media, packed gallery, cameras outside the courthouse. Swanson arrived in a suit. No badge, no gun, no authority. Just a man in a chair, waiting for judgment. His defense attorney argued protocol. Said the vehicle was suspicious. Said Swanson had no way to verify the travel orders at the scene. Tried to paint Breonna as uncooperative, a woman who escalated the encounter by refusing to comply. The prosecution responded with facts. And the dashcam. They played the footage in full, uncut. The courtroom was silent for 6 straight minutes. Jurors watched Breonna's calm. They watched Swanson's contempt. They watched an elderly woman cry while a man with a badge laughed. Brianna testified. She sat in the witness chair the way she stood on that gravel shoulder, straight, steady, precise. She described every moment without embellishment. No tears, no drama, just the truth, delivered the way a soldier delivers a report. And it was devastating, Denise testified. Her hands shook so badly she had to hold them together in her lap. Her voice broke twice. She described the sound of the handcuffs clicking shut. She described looking through the window and seeing her daughter's uniform in the dirt. And she said the words that silenced the courtroom. I thought I was going to watch them hurt my baby, and there was nothing I could do. Travis Holt testified for the prosecution. He confirmed everything. No probable cause, no legal basis for the search, no justification for the arrest. He admitted he'd seen the travel orders. He knew they were real. I knew it was wrong from the first minute, he said. I just didn't stop it. Expert witnesses explained the significance of military travel orders, what they represent, who issues them, the legal protections they carry. One retired JAG officer called Swanson's actions the civilian equivalent of tearing up a federal judge's court order in the middle of a courtroom. Judge Helen Baxter delivered the verdict. Guilty. All counts. The sentence: 48 months in federal prison. A permanent nationwide ban from law enforcement employment. Mandatory restitution to Lieutenant Colonel Powell. Completion of a racial bias rehabilitation program. Swanson was led from the courtroom in handcuffs, the same kind he'd put on Brianna. The cameras caught his face as the marshals walked him out, hollow, pale, emptied of everything he thought made him powerful. Sheriff Ronald Calder didn't survive the fallout. A county review board launched a separate investigation into the department's complaint handling. The findings were damning. Systemic failure at every level. 14 complaints. 0 accountability. A culture of silence protected by a man who signed every dismissal himself. Calder was forced to resign. He faced a civil lawsuit from 6 former complainants whose cases had been buried. His pension was placed under review. The Colton County Sheriff's Department was placed under a federal consent decree, the harshest corrective measure available. Mandatory body cameras for every officer. Comprehensive racial bias training. An independent civilian review board, with members of the black community included for the first time in the department's history. 5 years of federal oversight. No exceptions. Travis Holt cooperated fully with the investigation. He was not charged, but he resigned from law enforcement permanently. In a brief interview with Angela Whitmore, the only one he ever gave, he sat in a plain chair in a plain room and said, I stood there and watched it happen. I could have stopped it at any moment. I didn't. I chose to stay quiet because it was easier, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. He now volunteers at a community legal aid center. He never wore a badge again. 6 months later, Brianna Powell stood behind a podium in Washington, D.C. The auditorium was full. Veterans, lawmakers, journalists, civil rights leaders, active duty soldiers in dress uniforms sitting shoulder to shoulder with civilians who'd driven hours to be there. A national veterans conference, and Brianna was delivering the keynote. She wore her uniform, freshly pressed, every ribbon in place. But now the insignia on her shoulders was different. Silver Eagles, full colonel. A promotion earned not because of what happened on that road, but because of 20 years of service that almost got erased on it. She gripped the sides of the podium and looked out at the crowd. She didn't start with the traffic stop. She started with the oath, the one every soldier takes on their first day, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. She said she'd taken that oath at 19 years old, standing in a room full of strangers, not fully understanding what it meant. She understood now. She talked about what it means to serve a country that doesn't always see you. To wear a uniform that represents freedom for everyone and still get treated like a threat by the people you swore to protect. She talked about standing on that gravel shoulder with her hands behind her back, watching her mother cry, and choosing not to break. Not because she wasn't angry, because she knew that if the system was going to work, someone had to force it to. "I didn't fight back that day," she said. "Not because I was afraid, not because I was weak, because I believed that the truth would be louder than his badge. And it was. But it shouldn't have taken a colonel showing up in a staff car for my truth to matter. It should have mattered the moment I said the words." The room was silent. Then it wasn't. The applause started in the back and rolled forward like a wave. In the front row, Denise Powell, 71 years old, retired schoolteacher, wearing her best dress, the one she saved for Easter and funerals and moments she wanted to remember for the rest of her life. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she gave to neighbors, not the careful smile she wore in rooms where she wasn't sure she was welcome. A real smile. Full, proud, the kind that starts in the chest and doesn't stop. Beside her on the empty seat, a framed copy of the Colton County Reform Policy Manual. The first page bore a dedication: to ensure that no badge is ever used as a weapon against the people it was meant to protect. The civilian oversight procedures outlined in that manual were born directly from what happened on Route 9. Denise had asked for a copy. She kept it on her bookshelf at home, next to the framed photo of Brianna in uniform. When Brianna finished speaking, she looked down at her mother. Denise nodded. Small, quiet, complete. The kind of nod that holds 20 years of worry and 1 morning of terror and 6 months of healing, all in a single movement. Brianna nodded back. Colton County moved forward. Not fast, change never is, but the consent decree forced what pride wouldn't allow. The new sheriff, the county's first to be elected under federal oversight, implemented the reforms ahead of schedule. Body cameras, bias training, a civilian review board that met monthly and actually listened. For the first time, complaints from Black residents were processed, investigated, and resolved. Not perfect, but real. A memorial bench was placed at the spot on Route 9 where Brianna was detained, donated by local veterans. The plaque read, "Service doesn't stop at the uniform." The man in the pickup truck, the one who slowed down, looked, and drove away, was never identified. The narrator mentions this on purpose. He represents every person who sees something wrong and chooses the easy road. He's not the villain of this story, but he's not innocent either. The message of this story is simple. Justice doesn't arrive on its own. It doesn't knock on the door and introduce itself. It has to be demanded, documented, fought for. And sometimes it has to be dragged into the light by people who refuse to let the darkness win. Silence is not neutral. Travis Holt had the power to stop everything that happened that morning. One word, one step forward, one moment of courage. He chose comfort. He chose quiet. And that choice had a cost, not just for Brianna, but for every person Swanson had pulled over before her. Every complaint that got buried, every voice that got silenced. Silence doesn't just allow injustice, it feeds it. And the uniform, military or otherwise, does not make the person. But destroying someone's uniform, tearing their documents, spitting on their service, that doesn't diminish them. It reveals you. So let me ask you this, and I want you to really sit with it before you answer. If you were Travis Holt that day, standing on that gravel shoulder, watching everything unfold right in front of you, would you have spoken up? Or would you have stayed quiet? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear it. And if this story hits you somewhere real, if you felt something, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're not subscribed yet, come on now. You already know what to do. Because at the end of the day, the travel orders don't make the soldier. The soldier makes those orders mean something. And Brianna Powell proved that, standing in handcuffs on the side of a dirt road, without raising her voice, without throwing a single punch, without losing her dignity for 1 second. That's not just strength. That's power. And no badge, no gun, no pair of handcuffs can ever take that away.